If you are looking for a simple, lightweight, minimalistic lens kit for your Sony crop sensor camera, meaning an a5100, a6000, a6300, or a6500, I think this is the kit for you. So let me start off by saying this is not going to be a crazy technical pixel peeping kind of lens review. There's plenty of those out there on YouTube, some great reviews out there, and I looked at a lot of these before I chose these lenses. This is going to be strictly kind of like from an experience, from my experience of going out there and shooting, either photography or video. I do both. I did not know when I started my photography video venture that I was going to end up really trying to put together a really light run and gun system for travel. And as I started doing a little bit more, I started realizing some shortcomings with what I had. I started with the kit lenses, I should say, with two lenses. I had the 16 to 50 kit lens, and I also had the 55 to 210 kit lens. And I'll tell you a little bit more as we go, but I ran into a few problems with that combination. The other part of this is, again, I mentioned I'm not really a big pixel peeper. One of the big things about that is my father. My father is an amazing photographer. His name is Richard G. He's in museums throughout the world, permanent collections, and he does exhibitions. He did one exhibition in Beijing at the National Museum of China. And while we were there, with all of his photography up on the walls, I was walking through the exhibit with him, and I asked him, I said, "Hey Dad, you know, what are some good lenses to have?" And he said, "You know, Warren, don't get all messed up in the Zeiss and all of these crazy lenses." He said, "Any lens that you get," and for him that even means the kit lenses we're talking about. He said, "Any lenses that you're ever going to touch on any camera that you're going to get today is better than anything that I ever had. And look at my work, it's up on the walls." Now don't get me wrong, you know, my father got into the Leicas and all of those guys later. And he got into the 4x5 format cameras and all of these crazy things. But there were pictures up there from when he was in China, which is a long time ago for us, for a lot of us, I should say. So that really took that to heart. And they always say that it's not the gear, it's the photographer. I guess that really put it in perspective for me. So with that being said, let's get started. The first lens is the 18-105. When I went to his exhibit, to my father's exhibit at the National Museum of China in Beijing, that was the first time I really got to take my camera kit to really go out and play with it. At the time I had, as I mentioned, I had the 16 to 50 and I had the 55 to 210. What I realized was there would be shots from far away and I would put on the telephoto lens and I would take the shot. By the time I switched the lens, I would miss the shot. Then lo and behold, of course, as soon as you switch the lens, you have somebody, you know, a picture up close that you want to take, and boom, I would switch the lens and I would miss the shots again. So I missed a lot of shots. And I quickly realized that I needed to get something that would kind of take care of most of the focal lengths that I would use. And we have the 18-105. Brandon Lee, actually, who, if you look up on YouTube, Brandon Li, he is an amazing videographer. If you have a chance, if you're into video, check out his work, phenomenal. And he's the one that kind of, from his YouTube, he kind of talked me into this lens. A couple things about this lens. Number one, it's an F4 lens. It's F4 all the way through, so it doesn't change. It doesn't go to 6.3, 7 point whatever. It stays F4 all the way, plus and minus with that. With zoom lenses, as you get into further distances, the aperture shrinks. So this stays constant. However, it's just F4. It's not an F2.8, not F1.8. So this is not great in low light situations. But I would venture to say for most of the stuff you guys are going to be out there, and most of the stuff I do out there, whether it's photography or video, especially during the day, this lens will cover it. And the focal range is perfect. I mean, I can take care of anything that's up close. I can do anything from far away. this is really my go-to lens. I leave this on my camera all the time. There are people out there that'll say they're sharper lenses, what have you, but I have taken some pretty amazing photos with this. And if you ever need to throw this on a gimbal, the other cool thing about this lens is the barrel does not extend or contract depending on what focal length you adjust it at. It stays the same. So it's perfect if you want to cover an event or you're going to go somewhere and you don't really know what kind of images you're going to need. This is really a great lens because you can pretty much just throw this on your camera, run out there, and if you're going to throw it on your gimbal and do video, or if you want to just take pictures, you know that this lens will cover pretty much anything you're going to need. 105 on a crop sensor is approximately, what's that, about almost 150 something millimeters, so you got your great telephoto, and you know you're at 18 millimeters for your wide angle. So great lens, great all-around lens, always on my camera. Then you get to the wide angle. There's a lens out there that I think is really complementary to this lens, which is the 10 to 18 f4. If you have the 10 to 18 and then you have the 18 to 105, essentially you covered from 10 to 105 with both Sony lenses, both f4, so you could pretty much maintain the exact same look using those two lenses. My only thing about the 10 to 18 is also f4. I like to get into stuff like astrophotography sometimes and to have some nicer, like a wider aperture for my wide angle. So I chose to go with the Rokinon or the Samyang, the same, different name, same lens, 12 millimeter. This is an f2 lens. It's manual focus. But one thing about this lens too, and you keep in mind this manual focus, but there's a line here for the focus point. If you have it lined up right, it's infinity focus, meaning you can throw this on your camera, put it to that line, and you can run out there, it's always in focus. So you can just sit there and snap away, not even have to worry about focus. You can use little hidden shots and what have you, and this lens will cover you. And if you want to throw this on your camera and point up to the sky and take some nice long exposure shots, this lets in a lot of light. So I find that this 12 millimeter is great for the wider angle. So basically I have this 12 millimeter that will take care of low light and will take care of the, you know, the smaller or the wider angle. And then I go to the 18 to 105 f4. In between that, I have the 35 millimeter 1.8. This lens is great. It's a Sony lens. This is perfect if you want a little bit of that bokeh in the background, so you have the subject that you can focus on, whether it's further in the back or further in the front and the rest of it's blurry. It's a really cool look, great with photography, and also if you want to do the same thing, gives you that cinematic look once you're kind of working on video. And also it's a 1.8, so it's great for some of your lower light situations. If I know I'm going to be heading out at night, I will switch to either one of these two, depending on which mood I'm in. If I want wide angle and I want everything in focus all the time, I'll do the 12 millimeter. If I want to kind of have something a little bit more cinematic, or I want a little bit more artistic type of photos, then I'll use the 35 1.8. But in effect, you will pretty much, between these three lenses, be able to cover about 97% of the shoots. The only things that I think you may have some difficulty with might be wildlife or sports photography. Some of those cases you want a little bit of a longer range, and you know, if you're going to be photographing a lion, you probably don't want to be right up close. But I think for the most part, a 105 or a 150 millimeter will cover most situations for most photographers. And the other one might be portraits. This is great. You know, one of the things about portrait photography is if you're going to be playing with photographing somebody, you don't really want to be all up in their grill, right? You don't want to be all up in their face while you're taking the pictures. It kind of intimidates them. I will use the 35 for a lot of those situations. It gives you some distance. A 35 millimeter is essentially almost like a 50 millimeter lens on a crop sensor. And there was a gentleman out there by the name of Cartier-Bresson. Cartier-Bresson made Leica famous, and all he did was he just had his Leica camera and he had a 50 millimeter lens on there, and he always captured what he called the decisive moment. His pictures are in black and white, street photography, very, very famous for it. And if you look him up, I mean, his work is phenomenal. And basically 50 millimeters is how we see, so that's the same kind of perspective that we have from our eyes usually. And that's why it kind of became the standard. So before digital cameras and so forth, when there was still film camera, everything was full sensor, and everything, well, the equivalent of full sensor, and everything was 50 millimeters flat. Now with crop sensors, we have to multiply out by 1.5. So a 35 millimeter essentially becomes a 50 millimeter. So it's as close as we can get to that, to the same perspective that we have with our eyes. So that's kind of the gold standard, kind of like the standard that a lot of photographers will use when taking pictures. So this is really the closest that we have to that. And with the 1.8, we just can really capture some amazing stuff. So anyway, there we go. I think that with these 3 lenses, you should be able to cover about 97% of what's out there. If you guys have any better recommendations, please let me know. If you use different lenses or if you like this kit, by all means, leave a comment. If you like this video, give me a like. If you love this video, please subscribe, and I will see you soon.